Mark Sedotti has been an innovator of fly design and fly casting for longer than most of us have been fishing. Besides making important contributions to the design of big bait flies like the Sedotti Slammer, he spent decades helping fly anglers improve their casting technique. His approach is unconventional, but the results are indisputable, as anyone who watches him launch 100+ feet of fly line into the wind can attest. Today, Mark is a consulting editor for Fisherman Magazine and continues his work as a regular columnist for the Fisherman, while also giving countless casting clinics and demos across the country. On an early spring day on the east end of Long Island, we had a chance to get a detailed explanation from Mark about his approach to casting. We hope you find this video as interesting and helpful as we did.
Hi, I'm Mark Sedotti, and today I'm going to go into how I unload the rod, and I unload the rod in a unique way. I get the thing essentially to unroll. I get the rod to unroll, and then after that I get the line to unroll, but I also unroll the rod myself. I force it to unroll as I am letting it unroll, if you know what I mean. There's not much force there, but that's what I do. So, and I'll explain what I do. So I will first load my rod, right, the first stage of acceleration, and then when I unload, I'm going to use my wrist to get the rod to start to unroll. So I'm accelerating for my loading, and then I'm going to be accelerating the speed of my wrist, but I'm not going to go real fast at first. I'm going to simply increase that speed as I go, and that gets the rod to unbend. And when meaning the rod unbends, it's going to, the whole rod for a long cast is bent, a lot, almost completely, we'll say here. So what happens is, I just hold back and push a little and get this bottom part of the rod to straighten out. And then after that, and this is all steady, it all happens very steadily and really very quickly. And then through this tip section of the rod, as you see, I'll get the rod to, it straightens out below that, the bend goes up, 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 and I'll be using my wrist more and more and more till the last thing bent. Ideally, the last part of my rod that's bent, virtually the entire rod is almost straight, but I just have that tip bent. And most of the weight of the cast, the line, the momentum, the fly, all, ideally, I'll feel right at the tip top of my rod. And when I have that at the end, that's when I use a very quick wrist. And my thumb moves about ½ an inch, but it's real fast, and I force that tip over like that at the end of my stroke. And in essence, right, the rod's unrolling, then the line rolls after that, but in essence, I'm almost casting the fly line like it's a long lure. It's a 70-foot lure, I don't know, 75-foot lure, 65-foot lure, because it's straight and it's weight at that point. So I just feel that weight and throw that weight towards the target, just like you would with a spinning rod. It's the same way. That's how I unload. And yeah, I found, at least for me, it's an extremely efficient way to unload, and it's a very powerful way to unload also. And I have more precision in my cast, more precision for accuracy, more precision for distance. This is an advanced way to unload. I know it, you know, because it's kind of complex and it's something that you're not used to seeing, or maybe you hadn't heard before, you know. So in doing that, when I'm there right at the end of the cast, end of the stroke, we'll talk it, right when before and when I get that tip to come over really fast, I'm not using arm muscles. It's to the point where when I start that unload, I'm pushing a little bit, but the muscle transfer, right, has gone into my forearm and my wrist and my hand. And when I'm there right at the end, it is primarily the muscles in here that I'm using. And one reason why I can use these few muscles, right, with great effect is that I've created the momentum up to that point, which gives your body a chance to handle the weight with less muscle, because I've used so much muscle getting to that point. I've used a shift in body weight. I've used my entire body. most of the time, especially for a long cast, to get to that point, and then I unload. And when I'm at that point, the concentration of the energy, of the muscle energy, is right here. And it's relatively easy to control if you got it all done behind you. For a long forward cast, I'm actually using my entire body. You know, it's from starting at my back foot and going all the way up to, at the end, all the way up the rod, from my body up through the rod and to the tip top, and then that tip top moving over fast, and correspondingly my short wrist arc, making that short wrist arc with my hand or whatever muscles are right below. But I'm actually using all the mass of my body in a weight change, in doing that, a weight shift, and everything is coming up, all my weight, right, all the momentum up to the point at the end, which is very concentrated. So when I'm back here like this, at the end of my back cast, the start of my forward cast, my weight is on my back foot, and I'm coming through here. So as I come through and I'm moving forward, right, you see my shoulder, my twisting of my hips and my waist and my upper body coming through like that, right, building momentum, and that's pulling a lot of weight. I'm using a lot of weight. So like that, here, there's a weight shift here already. And then the momentum allows me to come through with perhaps just my upper body at this point, coming through, right? I might have a little bit of hip, waist, then it's transferred here, up, there. Now I'm going into the unload. So I'm really not using many muscles outside my arm, my shoulder muscle, and then towards the end of the unload, I'm just using the muscles there, and I'm click, very quick like that, and I'm out. Okay, upper body is fairly straightforward, you know, fairly straightforward. You know, I'm coming up from my waist, you know, I'm twisting my hips. I am actually, you know, my belly button is facing away from me or towards you when I start the cast for a long cast, and it finishes with my belly button is facing forward. It's almost like hitting a baseball. It's very similar, especially the way I cast with a wide stance. And so I'll come through like this, and again, you know, here I am moving my shoulders. Look at my shoulder movement. Hear that? That's almost, if not, a 90-degree twist of my shoulders also, which allows me to come through like this and finish like that. Oftentimes you'll see me cast, and I'm casting a long way, I'm making long casts, but I'm not extending very far, you know? I'm not extending very far. It's simply because that's the way my tackle feels. If it feels right, you know, and I can get that max resistance in not extending much, I simply won't. I mean, it simply depends on the rod, the reel, the specific line, everything. When it just feels right, I can stay in here and make a very long cast. Now, I'm using a weight shift for sure, but I'm not extending much. But for a good amount of the time, when I'm casting really long, you know, like in streamer fishing and trout fishing and big rivers and of course saltwater fishing, I'm going to extend pretty much. I don't extend too far going back. I used to extend a lot further, but I'll be back to a point, and you see I'm pulling that thing back with my weight, and then from this position here, very oftentimes I'll load through here, load, feel that resistance, right? And then I'll unload further going forward. Sometimes I'm almost extended with my arm. Sometimes, most of the time not. But my length of extension is pretty significant. Basically, I cast by feel. And what I mean by feel is I want to feel max resistance and the same resistance equi-resistance through almost my entire stroke. When I start the stroke, I'm not going to feel that right away. Oh, maybe a microsecond after I start moving the rod and my line is straight, it has to be straight, then the rod will start bending and I'll start feeling a certain resistance. And I call it max resistance when I'm really getting it good. So I want to keep that resistance through my entire stroke from right after the beginning of the stroke to the exact end of the stroke. And I use the haul in my line hand to keep that resistance so I don't lose the resistance. I don't think it increases my resistance, but I do it so I can keep that same resistance, max resistance, through my entire stroke. It gives me way more power, way more efficiency. So when you see me haul, right, I probably haul at the same time, probably just when I unload the rod or at the end of my unload. But sometimes people have told me that I'll be hauling at different times during my cast. I'm not conscious of it. I'm not conscious of my haul. I'm not conscious of how long a haul I'm making. All I'm conscious of is to keep the same resistance throughout the stroke. So I know that most of the time, if I'm hauling, I'm making a short haul. Oftentimes, people won't see it. It's this short sometimes. It's that short. Oftentimes, it might be just the wrist and a little bit of forearm. And that's a good haul. If you can do that consistently for almost all your casting, you're gonna be in pretty good shape if it works. Then maybe I'll haul a little longer at times, and the longest I'm going to haul, which I do oftentimes on my Sayonara Sling backcast with a real big fly and probably a shooting head, I'll haul at most 2 feet. I never haul beyond 2 feet. You know, I don't have to, and I think that I keep everything in control that way. So the shorter the haul you can make and make a good cast, the better you are. And the fewer mistakes you're going to make. You know, you're simply going to, you're going to be at a level where you can cast consistently well. I know that I have a good sense of timing, and if you do, you can wait till it's entirely straightened out, and then you can, you know, make your cast, either a forward cast or a long cast or whatever. And I gotta tell you that for the long cast that I make, when my line straightens out, I actually feel the pull of the entire line on my rod tip. That's when I know it's straight, you know? And at that point, I can go forward, and that gives me even more power. Right, for a short cast, here, you see it's straightened, it's straightened, it's straightened. For a shorter cast, for a longer cast, right, here, there it is. I felt that, boom, and I can make a full line cast just like that. But my line was straightened out. I know it was. I felt the pull. I felt that pull right at the end, and that's when, in a relaxed way, I just started my forward stroke and made my forward cast.